Carrot River was one of the last regions in Saskatchewan to be settled. Situate in the east central area, along the forest fringe, and south of the Saskatchewan River, the Canadian National Railway didn't arrive until 1931. Then, during the Dirty 30s, dried-out homesteaders from the south trekked in looking for a fresh start where rain was more reliable. The settlement of Carrot River became a village only in 1941, a town 7 years later in 1948. In those early years, such electricity as the village enjoyed was provided by a power plant operated by Walter Johnston, a farm boy from Harris with a talent for things mechanical. Here he is pictured in 1936, then just 16 years old, with the car he built entirely out of parts salvaged from at least 6 other vehicles of various makes and models. In 1946, Sask Power bought Walter's power plant and he moved into a new line of work, air freighting fish. At the end of the Second World War, he had qualified for a private pilot's license at the RCAF base in Prince Albert. Now he purchased a second-hand 65-horsepower Aeronca Champ, a 2-tandem-seated plane. The rear seat became the cargo space. The Aeronca was handy in 1947 when the Saskatchewan government placed a $20 bounty on wolves to protect the Cumberland moose herd. Walter outfitted a crew from Cumberland House to commercially fish Nameu and Suggy Lakes, then flew their catch 100 air miles out to Carrot River, where it was packed in ice and shipped to market in Winnipeg and Montreal. Business grew. Walter upgraded to a 90-horsepower Aeronca. Then he qualified for an aircraft engineer's ticket so he could do the maintenance and repair work on his own aircraft. He purchased property 2 miles east of Carrot River and constructed runways and a hangar. There were then few roads in the region, and Walter spotted an opportunity for a commercial air service. He secured a Class 4 charter in June 1957, and Carrot River Airways Ltd. was born. Fish freighting was abandoned. More and better aircraft were acquired, mostly Cessna 180s. Additional hangars were built, with better maintenance facilities and a radio room. Unicom, frequency 122.8, was monitored, and passing pilots kept in touch with this ground contact. Carrot River Airways served a number of isolated communities. Cumberland House, shown here in the winter of 1962, as well as Red Earth, Shoal Lake, Sandy Bay, Pelican Narrows, and Sturgeon Landing. Walter's aircraft also reached up to South End, Wollaston Post, and east to the Manitoba communities of Flin Flon and Lynn Lake. They flew civil servants, medical personnel, RCMP, and a twice-weekly mail run. In 1959, Sask Power commenced construction of the large hydroelectric facility on the Saskatchewan River, now known as the E.B. Campbell Dam. Carrot River Airways was kept busy flying engineers and hydro executives in and out of the dam site. At one point, the firm was operating 9 aircraft with 8 employees, most of them pilots. In the fleet was one amphibian, a Republic Seabee, shown here on the Saskatchewan River. Float-equipped aircraft were essential, and in 1969 Walter constructed a unique water airstrip at the Carrot River Airfield. Perhaps the world's largest dugout, it was 1 kilometer long, 90 meters wide, and sufficiently deep to harbor rainbow trout. In 1978, after 21 years of operation, Carrot River Airways gave up commercial flying. Roads had extended into the north, reducing the need for bush flying, and new transport regulations required additional capital injections that were no longer economic. The Class 4 charter was surrendered. But the hangars and maintenance shop stayed busy. Walter retained several aircraft and continued to fly. A new and much larger water airstrip was constructed east of the airfield, this time by Walter himself on the bulldozer. And he concentrated on repairing and rebuilding planes, putting a total of 16 aircraft back in the air, an activity that led to another adventure. In the spring of 1985, Walter purchased a Cessna 172, registration CF-NIL, from Keith Geddes at nearby Somme. It was a 1956 model plane, 30 years old and looking it. But Walter was thinking of it as a source of spare parts. Then he discovered that he had a piece of aviation history on his hands. The 172 held the world's flight endurance record. That knowledge saved the aircraft, as Walter restored it and returned it to service. He contacted the Cessna Corporation at Wichita, Kansas, which supplied him with the details of the record-breaking flight. In 1958, at Las Vegas, Nevada, two pilots, Robert Tim and John Cook, organized an attempt to set a new flight endurance record. Sponsored by the Hacienda Casino, on December the 4th, 1958, they took off in the Cessna 172 and didn't touch the ground again until February the 7th, 1959, more than 2 months later, a flight time of 64 days, 22 hours, 19 minutes, and 5 seconds, a record that still stands today for all aircraft. The 172 was extensively modified for the operation. 2 oil systems, filters, and a special 95-gallon fuel tank mounted on the belly, together with an electric winch. Still, refueling and supplying the aircraft during that long flight required daredevil flying and careful timing in an operation that ran twice a day, every day. On cue, a flag truck stopped traffic on a straight piece of highway. With Tim flying, the plane, especially equipped with its electric winch, dropped down 20 feet above the refueling truck, barreling down the highway at 75 miles an hour. Cook, half out of the plane, lowered a line to the crew in the truck. The fuel hose were detached, drawn up to the plane, and inserted into the special belly tank. On just one pass down the highway, in less than 3 minutes, 95 gallons of gas were pumped from the truck. On a second pass, the 45-gallon wing tanks were filled, and food, equipment, and oil were winched into the plane, and waste lowered out. On one occasion, the supply truck malfunctioned, and a 1956 Thunderbird filled in, sending 5-gallon fuel cans up to the thirsty 172. Another fix had been created to enable the engine oil to be replaced during flight, and the tires had been painted on takeoff to ensure no secret landings took place. When the plane did land, it had covered enough miles to circle the world 6 times. The flight endurance record made the Guinness Book of Records and still stands today. It is unknown if attempts have been made to break that record. After the great flight, the aircraft was sold, drifted into the used plane market, and eventually found its way to Canada, and then to Carrot River and Walter Johnston. Then, 3 years after Walter had restored the 172 to flying condition, in the spring of 1988, Steve Tim, son of the pilot Robert Tim, showed up at Carrot River. He had tracked down the aircraft and wanted to place it in a museum in honor of his father. Walter agreed to let Steve have the plane. In October 1988, the plane was ready to go back to Las Vegas. Steve had secured the original American number, 9N172B, and Walter looked after the registration. Steve arrived with a pilot, and they flew the plane off to Las Vegas, a trip it made without any difficulty whatsoever, another tribute to Walter's expertise as an aircraft engineer. Restored to its 1958 configuration and colors, complete with belly tank, the Cessna 172 now proudly hangs in the terminal at McCarran Field, Las Vegas, in permanent commemoration of its record-breaking flight. Back at Carrot River, Walter Johnston, 90 years old in 2010, continues to live next to the airfield. He no longer flies as pilot in command, having made his last flight in October 2002, at the age of 82, after 56 years of flying. He closed his last logbook at almost 18,000 hours, the equivalent of 2 years in the air. Walter stays busy in his workshops. He retains 2 aircraft and a huge inventory of spare parts. And he works a large garden, content at the close of a successful and fascinating flying career.